Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What up, everyone? Welcome back to the Reforge Your Life. I'm Joe Rivera, your host, and today, man, I got a guest that I'm so blessed to have on the show, man. I've been looking forward to this episode. Gustavo Pinheiro, he's a father, entrepreneur, real estate investor, empowerment coach, and man, Gustavo, and a motivational speaker. And Gustavo, man, I'm glad to have you here, brother. Thanks for coming on the episode today, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited, two homeboys from back in the days, from the back in New York. I get to go back to my roots, get to give back. So I'm excited, man.
I love it, man. Love it. It's always a blessing to give it back to New York, and always a blessing to have somebody else from New York on the show, man. So thanks again. And listen, man, you got a really inspiring story, man, and nobody tells it better than you do. So I want you to share it with the audience, man, because there's people out there that need to hear that.
Yeah, so it's crazy, right? We when we're especially coming back, the roots from New York, we grew up in the struggle, right? And it's like we don't understand what that struggle is about, so we get enticed into living this certain lifestyle, keep on hitting it hard, and that was, I was no different. I listened to my mom, get a good job, go get a good education. And so like part of the fruits of my labor, like back in 2011, I was on top of the world. I had my own business. It was booming. My wife at the time was pregnant with our son and just excited. And we get to go to Asia for the very first time, right? And so I'm excited about this. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Asia, right? And then the funny thing about this is that like I go and I didn't realize I didn't even speak the language, right? I was so excited to be there that I didn't realize, how am I going to communicate? So I got connected with one of my buddies who was out there, and he actually spoke English. So you can imagine how excited I was, right? And so we go and having some pho, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's this Vietnamese soup that's very full of herbs and stuff like that. And if you're like me, it tastes best spicy, right? So I busted out the sriracha, I put more, and I put some more on, right? And then here's the funny thing, right? My boy leans into me, right? He goes, speak up, I can't hear you. Speak up, I can't hear you. The first thing I do, right, is I look at the sriracha, I'm like, do they make the sriracha a little different in the States than they do over here? And because like he couldn't hear me, so I'm like, okay, maybe I just blew it off. About a month later, my voice still sounded a little kind of funny, right? So I go on the Google machine, right? And if any of you have gone on the Google machine to look up any sort of symptoms, and you're like me, you have them all, right? And so I had all these symptoms. I'm like, you know what? I just need to just go to a doctor. Let me go to an ear, nose, throat doctor, an ENT. And so I go to this doctor, right? And so she takes this scope. It has like a light at the end of it. And she shows me the scope. I'm like, what are you going to do with that, right? And she goes, no, seriously, I was like, what are you going to do with that? She goes, I'm going to put it up your nose. I'm like, you're going to put it up my nose. So she puts it up my nose and goes down the back of my throat. Sounds disgusting. And it hurts even worse, right? She goes, we need to do some more tests. Like, okay, whatever. Guess it is what it is, right? And when we come back, this time I come with my wife who's pregnant this time, right? And we're in the waiting room laughing and joking, trying to come up with names. And say, Mr. Pinheiro, come back to the examination room. Okay, no problem. We'll go there, walk to the back. And then the doctor comes in. And the crazy part was that I didn't see her face. The way she walked in, her back was turned towards us. And when she turned around, she looked like she saw a ghost.
Wow.
She walks over to me and puts her hand on my knee. And she goes, Mr. Pinheiro, I'm sorry. You have cancer. Bro, the room went like this. It shrunk. And that walk from the living room, from the examination room to the parking lot was the longest walk of my life. Outside of that, when all I could just do was just hug my wife at the time and just simply cry. What am I going to do? But crazy as it is, in that moment, I started getting all these flashbacks. I saw myself growing up in the hood, you know, in the South Bronx, jumping over drug addicts with their needles in their arms, ducking gunshots on the way to school. I saw all the times that, like, the world seemed like they were against me. I saw every single point in my life where I was like, I should have been dead or should have been in jail. And I even saw sometimes when I walked across and I was receiving my diploma. And I thought about all the obstacles I had in my life. And when I thought about that, I was like, you know what? I had to dig deep. And this moment of me to beat cancer was the same thing. I had to dig deep, deep inside me. And I found out at the end of the cancer, I found that there was something inside me that was greater than I knew myself to be. And I dug on that. And you know, your audience may be, some of them may be in the same space, right? And they may be feeling that, hey, the world's against me. And there's something inside them that's greater than they know themselves to be. And they stick to it and they persevere. And that really is what changed my viewpoint, where you know, when I started going through all this, it was all about making money and getting out the hood and doing all this. And then it's like, no, I got purpose now and I want to make a difference. And so that's pretty much my story in a nutshell, because once I started stepping into my purpose, I started realizing that I'm called to serve men who want to empower themselves in their lives. And so pretty much that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, man. Wow. I mean, listen, bro, first off, congratulations on beating a monster. And man, you're a walking miracle, brother. You know, I'm thankful that God saved your life and gave you the opportunity to be able to go out there and share your message and give this gift that you've been giving back. So first off, want to say congratulations on that, bro.
Yeah, the journey's arduous, but you know, like nothing's without a fight. You know, it's like we talk behind the scenes. You know, we share kind of our stories. It's like, you know, really what it is that this world needs. You know, some authenticity about like, yeah, the struggle's real, but how can we all, like brethren, learn from one another and really empower one another to take the next step forward? That's what it's really all about.
Yeah, man, it's giving it back, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That gift wasn't given to us for no reason. It wasn't given to us just to keep it inside and say, you know what, this is my gift and only my gift. Right? Yeah, that's not what he did it for.
You know, here's the truth of the matter, right? The truth of the matter is that like if you would have spoken to me during that time, you didn't probably even recognize my voice. The fact that I can actually speak is a miracle within itself, because I lost my voice completely. Yeah.
He gave it back to you for a reason, right? He said
he gave it back to me. Well, he gave it back to me for a reason with a big pile of responsibility.
That's right. It ain't supposed to be easy, right? It ain't. No. Purpose isn't easy.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? One of the things that when I start thinking about like those moments where I was kind of like almost forced into my own silence, right? Because even though when I would speak to people, they wouldn't understand me because my voice was so raspy and so like difficult to understand. I sound like this, screaming. Yeah. And so it kind of forced me to learn to listen. And then listen to people and listen to the power that they had within them. And then so when God gave me that miracle, he gave me the music back inside of me.
I love that. Yeah. Man, that's powerful. Gave you the music back inside of you. Can you elaborate for the listeners a little bit more on that? Because that's powerful.
Because you know, here's the thing, right? We all have a lot of music inside of us, right? And if you ever look at the place where the most music is wasted, just go to a cemetery. Because you look at all the people that have all the potential in their lives, and had the opportunity to step within their purpose, right? And they just kept it inside of them. And so it's like, talk about second, third chance, right? It's like, how many chances have I been given? How many chances have you been given? How many chances your audience has been given to like really like let that music express itself and really be powerful in what they're doing? And sometimes, we're called to make a difference in people's lives, whatever that form may be, right? And if we don't do that, those people that are called to us and only us, right? They get left by the wayside. They don't get to live on their thing. So like a lot of times if you look at it through that lens, right, it's almost selfish of us, right? Like imagine if you, Joe, if you didn't step up to even just do this podcast, and your audience would never get to hear people like me or whoever else you have on your platform, or even you and your story, right? And you making the difference out there. If you didn't say yes, nobody will ever be able to show up. And sometimes we forget about that. We forget the importance about that.
Yeah, man, you got to pay attention to those signs when God's giving you something that he's like, you got to go do this. You can't ignore that, man, because it's obvious, it's clear as day out there sometimes, and there's people that are just ignore it, and they're ignorant to it, But man, I refused to have God save my life. Not one time, not two times, not three times, but numerous times, right? Yes. I mean, 2 times I overdosed, but what about all the times I drove home and don't remember how I got home? Yep. So all those times he saved my life, and I refused to not do something about it because I wasn't saved. It wasn't a coincidence. It's a God incident. So I got to give that gift back. So when for you, after you beat the cancer, when did you know that you had that music inside? When did you know that there was something there that you had to give back?
Wow, that's a great question. So it's weird because when you start connecting the dots, you start seeing how God had been preparing you all along, right? And so there was always something about me that wanted to like be better, right? Whether it be financially better, spiritually better, or mentally better, there was always something that wanted to like do better. Something was pulling me forward. And I had done a lot of like self-development work that kind of helped prepare me. It almost like I needed to do the self-development work to prepare me to have the cancer incident, right? Because I think that if I didn't do the self-development work first, I might not even be sitting here. Because the way that I played beating cancer was like a game. I played it like, okay, it's me, God, and the cancer. Nobody else even knew this game that I played. I stated that like, I'm going to play this like a game and I'm going to win it. And I'm going to declare right now that I'm going to manifest my healing in 3 sessions, right? 3 weeks. They gave me 6 weeks of treatment. And week 1 was our baseline. Week 2, they said it's getting significantly smaller. Week 3, to be honest, I was in so much pain that I told them, don't scope me, because every week I would get scoped. And then week 4, they said, I declare you cancer free. Right? So in my mind, I already beat it. I don't have the actual picture of like the scoping on week 3, but for me, I beat it in week 3. And so then it started to let me know if I'm able to manifest that, right, around my own health, then what else can I manifest? And then here's the kind of like that point where you said about the music being turned on inside of me, right? So I started to understand about the manifestation. Okay, I beat it. In the midst of that, I also understood that more money didn't make a difference in my life after that.
Come on, man. There you go.
I started to look at that like this is the biggest mine. I don't know if we can curse here, but I say it with colorful.
Yeah, feel free, bro. Yeah.
So for me, it was like the biggest mind fuck, right? Because growing up in the hood and growing up on welfare, and I grew up back in the days when when we used to get the food stamps, it was all different colors, right? We had green, we had the green ones, we had the brown ones, the blue ones, and each one represented a certain denomination of dollars, right? And I didn't know probably till about like 10 years old, 11 years old, that actual currency was green. Like US dollars was green.
Wow.
Living on food stamps. And so like, when I started to realize that from that early age, it was instilled, make money, do the hustle, step on whoever you need to step on to get that mighty dollar.
Mm.
Now, fast forward, now I'm at the end, highly successful, traveling the world, and all I care about is having my health. You couldn't pay me to go through that. And I had all this money, and I'm like, this is the biggest mind fuck ever. I got solicited to spending my time away from my children, sacrificing my intimate life, intimacy, not sexual, but like intimacy with my partner. Yeah. I sacrificed my health. I sacrificed my education, my spirituality, and squandered my time just to make money. For what? For what?
To be spiritually bankrupt.
To be spiritually bankrupt, like you say. That's what happened to me. And I was like, wow. So when that music got put back inside of me, like God put that music back inside of me, it's like, hey, I'm no longer enamored by more zeros in my bank account. Let's have a talk. Let me know where your spirit's at. Mm. I'm no longer defined by what accolades I have, how many initials I have behind my name, or how much connections I have in my network. Where's your spirit at? And when I started being awakened to that, coupled with all the life transformational courses I had taken before, I developed a certain listening. And in that listening, I would have both men and women come to me, and more often than not, I would see grown men crying in front of me, revealing things to me that they never revealed to anyone else, not even their wife, of the struggles that they feel. And it didn't make a difference. The commonality between all this was that it did not make a difference how much money they were making. There was a Princeton review, there was a Princeton research that was done. And it showed that men that made $70,000 or more, upwards of north of $1 million, that there was no significant change in their happiness because they made more money. And I mean, I know a little bit of background in your story, and I'm sure your audience does too, and you can attest to this, making the 7 figures, 8 figures, or whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. It didn't make any much more difference. Okay, so you got a couple more rocks in your watch, you got a couple more things, but what really significant difference did it make?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, when there's that spiritual component is missing, there's so much emptiness inside. Don't get me wrong. I don't want the audience to think that none of us are saying money's not valuable, right? Because that's not what we're saying. I mean, no. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I remember that welfare cheese, man. That shit tastes good, right?
It took forever for that shit to melt, though, bro.
Yeah, for real. But all kidding aside, I mean, having money, I've been on both sides, having money and not having money, and I'll take having money any day of the week.
Yes.
But when that spiritual component is missing,
yes,
I mean, there's emptiness that's ugly, that could turn disastrous. I mean, we've seen it so many times. Look at people like Robin Williams, had the world by the balls, took his life away. Marilyn Monroe took her life away to drugs. Elvis Presley, drugs. Michael Jackson. The list goes on and on. And those are just like famous people that we know. What about the average billionaire that's out there that's empty and jumps out of a window and takes his life? Why? Because something's missing. It's that spiritual component, and when that's missing, you can't create fulfillment. It's impossible.
Yep, it's crazy. So one of the things is this that I learned, right? It's all in the context in which you learn and earn your money, right? So obviously, through the years, I learned to be more faith-centered. I had to. I had no other choice, right? In reality, when someone says to you that hourglass, they flipped it over and said, okay, you thought you had X amount of time left, and that hourglass all of a sudden is going to be empty. It gives you a smack of reality. And only time wherever you can choose is to go back into your faith. I had no choice but to go back into my faith.
Yeah.
And it's like I could do all these manifestation dharmas and this thing and that thing, all that. But if I didn't go into my faith and believe that I could beat it, right? And then connect to the God divine. So my point being is this, is that like when you, in the context and in the way you make your money, right? The Bible talks about mammon. You know, when Jesus was talking about mammon and like the root of all evil is money, right? He was talking about mammon. And so there's a lot of things that may seem like it's access to a life of prosperity. It'll mimic it, right? And let me be clear what I'm saying. Like you can have the jet planes, the Rolls Royces, the bling, everything, right? And like you're saying, still be spiritually bankrupt. Then you start to question, how did I build this? Was the basis of this faith-based or not? Like, who am I working for? Am I working for myself and my own needs, or am I working within the kingdom, right? And there's a reason why I say that, because when I started to understand that there's bigger powers at work here, right? It was easier to make money.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm living within my purpose.
Right.
And it's and you're making a difference out there. So it's not like it's a struggle. Now, don't get me wrong. Like you're saying, it's like I've been poor and I've been rich and I like being rich better. You know, there was a famous person that said that. But like, as long as we're not spiritually bankrupt,
Yes.
as long as we're not selling our soul for that richness, you know, and then using our purpose to empower others. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons, kind of pulling it full circle when you were talking about like when the music was instilled back in me. Not only was it just one instrument that was playing, it was a symphony.
Ooh, love that. Love that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, man, there's so much to unpack here, right? But because you spoke about how you had to go back and lean into your faith again, because along the way you kind of lost your way, it sounds like. So I'm curious though, because obviously that's spirituality, that's a huge core value of yours. But before we uncover those core values that we have inside of us, we have to crack through limited beliefs. We have to crack through fears that we have to move through and overcome. So what limited beliefs and fears did you have to overcome and move through in order to be able to get to that point where that core value is uncovered?
So great question. So one of the first things I had to learn is like, what were those limiting beliefs, right? Because you can't address something that you don't even know it's even present, right? And so we're all in a relay race of life, all of us, right? And if you know anything about relay races, there's the last position, right? And that position in the relay race is called the anchor, right? And why do you think that they put Usain Bolt at the end, right? Because he's going to bring it home, because he's very fast. And so if there's some people that are in front of him, he's going to bring it home. And if there's a lead already, he's going to maintain that lead. So essentially, when we're doing the relay race of life, the anchor is the most prominent position, right? And in this relay race, there's always three people, right? Three people. It's mom, dad, and you. Mom, dad, and you, right? Now, what changes is this. What we know for sure in that relay race, we're always playing anchor. We're always in the anchor position. What changes is that maybe mom may be first, maybe dad may be first, maybe dad may be, mom may be second, dad may be first, whatever it may be, right? So in my life, what I learned was this, is that mom was first, right? Dad was second, and I'm playing anchor. And so, boom, the gun goes off. And I see mom running. Her little legs, she's about 5'2", so you know her legs are moving real fast, right?
Puerto Rican.
And so I'm timing it because I know that dad's going to take X amount of time to give me the baton. And so I'm timing, I'm watching mom, and I see her pass the baton to dad. And I'm like, okay, boom. And so some of the people already got their baton, and I'm reaching back to get my baton, right? And I keep reaching back, and I'm reaching back, and I realize that my hand is empty. And I look back at my dad, and I see he hasn't even ran yet. And he goes, "You want this? You want this? Go fucking get it." And he throws it the opposite direction. Being the guy that I am, I'm like, I'm not going to let any obstacle stop me. Some people get stopped there, but I wasn't one of those. So I ran past my dad. I gave him some very colorful language. I gave him the finger, right? And I picked the baton up and I ran. I ran his leg and I ran my leg. You would have swore I was the Puerto Rican Usain Bolt. I was passing everybody. 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place. Now I'm in 1st place. And the finish line is just right in front of me. And I stop. And I look at the baton. I drop it. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't running my own race. I was running the race of my generations before me. It was in that moment I realized what generational curses was.
Right.
So to answer your question is that how did I kind of like begin to notice? It was when I stopped running that race. And I realized that I got to run my own race for me. And I'm going to draw this line behind me, not in front of me, so that not only I will be able to get the fruits of my labor, but so that the generations after me will as well. And so that started the mind shift. That started the inquiry. That started say, okay, if I want something, I got something better, I got to do something better. I got to start changing my relationships to money, my relationships to women, my relationship. And I started looking at myself and I became aware of the broken masculine. I became aware of the broken feminine and how those things interact. And I became aware of how I would interact with other people within that brokenness and devoted myself to that change. And that's kind of like where the mind shift started. And then now I started reading books, tons of books, like, Think and Grow Rich. And, and you can see some of the books back here that I started reading, that like are all about shifting my mind. And then when I started to not only learn it in theory, but then started to do a practical application to it, I started to realize, oh shit, this is the real deal. And when I started seeing the difference, the main difference is when I started seeing my homies who we grew up with had a very similar background and started seeing that gap. And it started out with just a small difference, right? I remember I went to the seminar many, many, many years ago. And they said, all you need to do is have a difference is just a little bit change. But the trajectory over time makes that big of a difference. You know what I mean? And so that's what I learned. I learned about, like, when I started learning to transform my mind thinking, the first thing I had to realize is that whose race am I running? That's the first thing. And so, for your audience, wherever they're at in their lives, one of the questions they don't need to, but they may want to ask themselves is like, am I running my own race or am I running my parents' race and the generations before them?
Yeah, man, I love the race analogy big time. I mean, because you got to run your own race. And you also got to realize that you're not defined by your past or your family's past, your generation's past. It don't work like that, right? You're not a victim of your circumstances and conditions. They don't control your own destiny. You do.
Yep.
So, I mean, man, that's so important. And also, you were mentioning about, the people that you surround yourself with, and when you start growing, the people who aren't growing with you, there's the gap that gets created at that point, right? Because, I mean, the old saying that we grew up with in PRs, dime con quien te andas y te digo quién eres, right? Tell me who you walk with,
yep.
and I'm going to tell you who you are. you want to surround yourself with people who are going to inspire you. And guess what? When you surround yourself with people who inspire you, you're going to be inspired to do more with your life. And when you start putting together the reading material, like you're putting in the work and reading and realizing, because you did a lot of work on the mind, and you start realizing how powerful your mind is. And man, our thoughts become emotions. Those emotions become, reactions, and those reactions become our results, our reality.
Yep.
Man, and putting that all together really puts things into a different perspective for all you listeners out there, man. It's so important to do the work on your mind, because your mind is the most powerful tool that God blessed you with, without a doubt.
I want to piggyback on that. And so, like, here's one of the biggest things that I would say that most people forget, especially in this day and age, which is in a day and age that we want instant gratification. Oh, I'm hungry, I go on Uber Eats, I don't even have to leave my couch, right? I want this, everything's at a fingertip, right? And people want the same results, whether they're the younger generation or even the older generation, right? And what I like to say is this: you want to be like bamboo, right? Most people don't even understand how bamboo even grows, right? So bamboo, before it starts to sprout, spends its time putting its roots down. And sometimes you won't even see it germinate. But when those roots are down and that foundation is strong, bamboo, under certain circumstances, will grow 2 or 3 inches a day. But most people are watching how it's growing a day and trying to compare themselves to that. But they didn't realize the roots that they had to put down first. And that's the mindset. That's all the work that we're talking about right now that you have to do in the background. They just keep trying to do and push through. I'm not saying that won't get you through stuff, right? Don't get me wrong. But it's like, is all that work done in vain if you don't shift your mind? There's that theory around, that's actually not even a theory, it's a truth, that a lot of millionaires who've won the lotto, right, they'll spend themselves poor because their frame of thinking hasn't caught up to the amount of money they've made. And so they, instead of like elevating their thinking to their money, what they do is they lower their money to their thinking.
Wow. Come on, man. That's right there. That's exactly what it is, man. You grow as much as your mind does, in every other aspect of your life. So Gustavo, I'm curious, because you cracked through those limited beliefs, or overcame those fears. What, through your process and journey, what core values were uncovered when you cracked through those limited beliefs? I mean, we spoke about the spirituality part, which is most important. What other core values were cracked through once those limited beliefs got removed and you started overcoming those fears?
So one of the main things that stands out when we're talking about this is obedience, right? Yeah. And obedience has many levels. So let me break that down to what I mean by obedience, right? We started talking about spirituality. So the obedience to your purpose, right? Your God-given purpose, right? And so sometimes that obedience, you may, depending on who you are, you may hear God tell you make a left. And then you're like, oh no, I got to go to work right now and I'm running late. What are you talking to make a left right now? And you ignore that. Yeah. Not knowing that if you'd have made the left, maybe you would have not gotten into that car accident. Or maybe you'd have bumped into somebody who would have been the right person for your business that you needed. Yeah. Then there's the obedience to self, right? I say something and I'm obedient to self. And because I said it, I'm going to do it. Not letting my feelings get involved with that, right? So one of the core values is obedience. I think that I learned a new term, because I used to call it integrity, right? So integrity is how I treat others, right? Like what I do with others. And there's levels to integrity, right? But the other part is being integral, right? Which is integrity to self. And that's where you start putting boundaries. When people are emotionally bankrupt and in disparity, they'll let other people step on them. So, integrity to self, which is being integral, is like, okay, who am I being that aligns with my purpose so that I can manifest what I need to manifest in my God-given rights, right? So being integritous is like, if I say, like, I'm going to be here, I show up, right? And a lot of people do that for other people. But if I say, I'm going to be here for me, this is where people get a little swirly.
Yeah.
Because I'll show up for you because I gave you my word, right? But then I'll let myself off the hook and say, no, you know what? I'm going to get up tomorrow at 4:30 and I'm going to start my workout regimen. You know, we're getting towards the tail end of the year here, right? And so everybody's going to start making these New Year's resolutions to lose a couple of pounds, to do this, to do that, right? And more people are more committed to making a difference into their word of integrity to others than they are to themselves. And so they tend to fail in those areas because they make that commitment, but they don't follow through with that. Because the minute that it's tested, oh, I'm not that important. We don't really say it out loud. I'm just putting voice. Like if I had an inner voice and said, oh, you said this, but then you start thinking, like, you know, if I told you, Joe, I'm going to show up, right? And the first time I show up, I'm 5 minutes late. Next time I show up, I'm 20 minutes late. Next time I show up, I'm 30 minutes late. And the next time I show up, I don't even show up at all. How much are you going to believe my word when I tell you I'm going to show up?
I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself.
Right? But guess what? We do this to ourselves all the time. And so when we're trying to create something, because we've lost being integral, we lost the ability to be integral with ourselves. When we say, okay, forget about all the times I said I'm going to work out. Forget all the times I said I'm going to show up. Forget about all the times I slept in when I said I'm going to get out of bed. Now I want to become a millionaire. And your inner voice that's in charge of creating says, go fuck yourself, because I know you're not going to show up.
Yeah.
So obedience, being integral. And I think that in the power of like making sure that you align with your purpose. Once you, because a lot of times we know what our purpose is and then we play small, right? We pretend we don't know and we get into this all swirly world. But let's say we got that out the way and we're clear what our purpose is, right? Like say I'm committed to being fit, right? But then I hang out with people who smoke weed and drink and they hang out late. Well, that's not aligned with my purpose.
No.
And so like, you know, you have to like make sure that every single aspect of your life aligns with that purpose. And so for me, it was like, it's very important that like my intimate relationships line up with that. You know, what I'm doing in the community, what the community is doing back to me lines up with it. How I make money lines up with that. How I take on my health lines up with that. My education, the things I'm allowing myself to like, you know, because a lot of people are like, oh, let me just do a Netflix and chill night, for example, right? And they'll allow all these things to like bombard their mind and not realizing that their mind is absorbing that. And if it's not lined up with your purpose, it's going to talk you right out of what you want. And then, you know, I think that spirituality is a verb, right? And some people just practice it by just reading it, and then they think it's some sort of description, or at best it's a noun, but they don't take the action that lines up with their purpose when it comes to spirituality. And so many people squander their time, me included, right? And it's like, where do you line everything up with your purpose so that your time, which is the biggest commodity that we have, not even money or time, that plate is full around that. I think that's those are the three, and I'll throw in one other one, right? Which kind of sums it up is that you could never get full looking at someone else's plate. You know, so many times we're looking at what the other person is doing around us and get all sorts of feelings one way or another. and don't realize that I'm not eating off that plate.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe be in an inquiry and say, okay, you did this. How did you do that so I can learn? But like when people are putting that energy out there to be like being in that hater space, it's like you look at somebody else's plate and you're mad because they're eating.
Right.
That is the biggest distraction away from your purpose, away from your obedience, away from your being integral to what you're lining up yourself for. So I think that those are those three plus the bonus things are the ones that I think would transform your life the most.
Listen, I agree, man. Integrity is important, and man, the bonus one you just mentioned is so powerful on so many different levels, right? Because looking at someone else's plate and being on that hater mode. Number one, when you're on hater mode, you're fueling somebody else's success, and also like looking at somebody else's plate is also creates imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So when you think of, because you mentioned about squandering from these core values, right? So when you do squander, because look, man, this ride to success that we all strive for and all have, and it ain't a straight ride to success. There's bumps in the road. Shit's gonna get fucked up. You got to learn how to navigate through those bumps in the road. So what's something that you hold dear to yourself for when you do squander from those core values, that you're able to kind of remind yourself, shit, I'm squandering, I'm falling off. I got to get back on track here.
I think that, and this goes back to those core values, right? And so I keep mentioning community. So I think this is a practical application where a wealthy community comes into play, right? Mm-hmm. And so imagine that you're a small little boat and you want to go from point A to point B, but there's rough seas, right? Mm-hmm. The boat's going up, the boat's going down, you're getting left. And most of the times that road is not straight. That because, the wind is blowing you one way, the other, and it's like, who is going to be those beacon to guide you in? Just imagine like that point B has a lighthouse, and that's your community, and they're trying to bring you home. And it's like having the trust and faith in your community that could tell you, hey, listen, you're off kilter here, my man. Mm. I'm not hating on you, but I wouldn't be your bro if I want to tell you you're slipping.
Word.
It's just like being that lighthouse to that small little boat in rough seas. Hey, you're trying to come home. Let me help you come home. I think that's one main thing, right? So I'm one that believes is you don't need a lot of people. You can keep your tribe small in the sense of the people that you trust to help bring you home, right? But you can make a difference in a lot of people's lives, right? And so that's one thing. And when you fall off the road, I think it's a self-check of like, am I being obedient? Go back. Those points, I would just go back to those points and ask straight questions, because you know when you're fucking up.
Oh.
And if you're real honest with yourself, you know what it is.
Yeah, man.
You know what it is.
Man, I hope you listeners out there are taking notes, because that's jewels right there, and it's real. Because support network is one thing I heard there. Surrounding yourself with people. It doesn't have to be a big ass circle of people. It could be small, intimate, but powerful. And those people are going to help bring you back to shore when you go a little too deep. And then also being able to make sure that you take that moral inventory of yourself, peel the onion back and take stock of who you are, and do that on a daily basis and check in with yourself. Because when you start losing track on that, man, that's when you start spiraling out of control. Life becomes unmanageable and things just get chaotic. But you have the power within you to prevent that by, doing putting these little, tools in place. So,
I want to add something to that, because there's one missing piece in this recipe of what we've been discussing. And imagine you are cooking your most favorite meal, right? And we Latinos, we like our spices and we like our flavor in our food, right? And so imagine you cooking it and you go and you take the spoon to do a taste test, right? And you taste it, you sip it, you're like, something's missing.
Mm.
And then you maybe put it to your friends, taste it, right? Something's missing. What's missing, right? And then your tribe, your community will say, oh, maybe you're missing some salt. That's the check-in that we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then we add the salt. But when we do that, we don't make it wrong. It's just missing.
Mm.
And I think that the golden nugget is this, is that like, if we go through life and knowing that we fucked up, right? And our community comes back to us, they've tasted the salt, say, hey, this is missing salt, right? We don't get angry at them, or we don't get angry or shame ourselves. We just add the salt and keep it moving.
That's it.
And so many times you go into that place of shame, regret, or anger because, we make it wrong. But in reality, all it is that there was just something missing. That's it.
Yeah. Just a little sazon. That's all. A little sazon and adobo.
It's a little sazon. That's it.
Gustavo,
Don't make me go to my kitchen. Don't make me go to my kitchen. Go get some sazon and show you what's up.
Now you get me hungry on the show. I'm about to go get some arroz con habichuela, man, after this.
Oh, there you go, bro.
But Gustavo, what's important to your soul?
Wow, that's a great question. I think being the fullest expression of who I am, unapologetically, and making sure that the relationships around me are catered to and nurtured.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful, man. It's powerful. Being your authentic self, man, and being able to connect with those people around you is extremely important. So, man, Gustavo, tell these listeners where they can find you and what you're doing now after the battle with cancer, overcoming that. Let everybody know what you got going on.
Yeah, so you can find me on Gustavo Pinheiro on LinkedIn, and on IG, you can find me on Wealthonomics Society. On IG is my handle, Wealthonomics Society. You could catch me, you could hit me up in my DMs. And really, what we've been talking about in the last 45 minutes or so is the truth of the matter is this: is that like I'm such a stand for it that like I take men to take them behind the curtain, so to speak, and let them see what it is that has them have that feeling of unfulfilledness. And actually, let's do the work. Let's do the shadow work and find out what that is. And then we create a roadmap to how to get a solution to that. And that's I've dedicated my life to that. After getting the second chances, the third chances, and all that, there's no time to stop and play around and not stand in my purpose. And so for me, it's to empower men, because I know that the man is the house binder of the family. So imagine how many families, just by speaking to the head, what that'll do. Yeah,
man. I mean, isn't it incredible though? Like you mentioned the first chance, second chance, third chance. Like God will keep throwing those chances, keep throwing. He's like, toma. You're not gonna get it, toma otra vez. Here's another one. You know what I mean? And finally, it's like that aha moment comes.
But you know what I've learned in that? Like people think that like, so life will put you in the swirl, right? And while you're in the swirl, God whispers. Yeah. And so you're hearing the like, toma, but that's life giving you the swirl, right? And God's whispering, are you listening?
He's like, I
can help you out.
Yeah, I got you.
Just listen, I got you. Yeah. And when you start to stand in the silence, that's why, remember earlier on, I was talking about the metaphor that I couldn't speak. So I was forced to be quiet. Yeah. And I was forced to listen. Yeah. And so for your audience out there, it's like, the truth of it is this, is that like, where are you letting all the noise in your life dictate the things that you want to do and rob you of your purpose. Sometimes we just need to just be still and just listen to the whisper.
That's
For real.
You nailed it. That's one of the most important pieces. Everybody out there listening to me, that's one of the most important pieces to spirituality and being able to build a relationship with your higher source. You want to call it God, the universe, infinite intelligence, whatever you believe. But learning to be able to sit quiet with yourself and listen, because when you do, that higher source is going to talk to you. He's going to throw you signs. You just got to be out there paying attention, man.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. So some people get in this kind of weird, quirky world, having had conversations with all sorts of people from all different backgrounds, right? What's the uniqueness of this is that, like you said, whatever you want to call it, higher thought, the one, God, Allah, Buddha, source energy. What I learned out of all this, and no matter where I've traveled in the world, is that source energy, that God energy, speaks to you in your language.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about, I speak English and God will speak to you in English. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say your language will speak to you in a language that's not cryptic, but that you can fully understand.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Gustavo, man, there's two questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is, what does the word purpose mean to you?
Purpose mean to me. When I see purpose, it's like there was a seed that was implanted in every single one of us. And that seed is waiting to be watered so that it could germinate. That seed never goes away. And sometimes throughout our life, it may germinate, but never fully grow to its potential. And no matter what we do, and no matter how much we try to negate that seed will grow either exponentially or grow very slowly, but that seed will never go away and it will never die. And to me, purpose means understanding what that seed is and then being able to water that seed so that way it could bring about to its full fruition. What I think about is that if you've ever been to California, if you've ever seen these beautiful redwood trees or these sequoia trees, if you never did it, I highly recommend either you or your audience to go out and see this, because the majesticness of how big these trees are, right? Some of them at the base take more than 40 people to go around hand in hand, holding it together. But it all started from that one seed, right? And so it's like, if we have that seed within us, it is up to us to water it, to nurture it, so that way we can become like those big sequoias or those big redwood trees. And for me, purpose is the access to that.
Wow. I mean, that's just beautiful, man. That seed inside of us that continues to grow, man. Love that. And the last one, man, is, what is the word, when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind?
My life in a nutshell, right? Because I think about, like, you got steel, right? And over time, that steel may dull, right? That steel may crack. That steel may lose its luster. That steel, if it's not even treated properly, may even begin to corrode. So when I hear the word reforge, it's almost like a second coming. I get to put it back in the fire. I get to melt it down and take out all the impurities, and then I get to reforge it again. And so when I hear the word reforge, it exemplifies to me a new beginning.
That's right.
And then when you couple that with your first question around purpose, reforging within your purpose, the possibilities at that point are unlimited.
Absolutely.
and even incomprehensible at that point too, because like you never know what you never know that you can never be unless you put yourself in the fire.
That's right. It's an abundant lifestyle that you create at that point once you put those together, man.
Sure.
If you do it properly, without a doubt. Man, Gustavo, man, this has been phenomenal, bro. I really appreciate you coming through, man, and dropping the
I'm glad
jewels.
you invited me, man.
Yeah, man. So, man, everybody out there, I hope y'all got something from this, man, because this was a great episode. Thank y'all for coming out, man. And everyone have a productive, profitable rest of the week and stay blessed, y'all.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.